Bills win their fourth in a row. Packers lose their fourth in a row. Holy crap. Now, we expected this from the Bills. At one point, we thought this game, Week 8, Sunday night, would be kind of like maybe a Super Bowl preview. No, unless we just focus on one of the two teams involved in the Super Bowl. The Bills, 6-1, best record in the AFC. Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things. Not a huge night, but good enough. 218 passing yards, couple of touchdowns, also 2 picks. Kept it from being a blowout. Stephon Diggs had a big night. And, I don't know what the closing line was. I think it was more than 10. Final score 27-17. If it was more than 10, obviously, the Packers cover. If it was right on 10, it's a push, and the house keeps the vig. But I expected it to be worse than it was, and it felt like it was going to be worse than it was. I almost feel like Buffalo's foot slipped off the gas pedal in the second half, and they just really didn't. They never felt compelled to try to put it back on.
You know what's funny? Sometimes teams, when you're so good like that, sometimes you get bored a little bit. And that's kind of what it felt like to me. I mean, you talk about Josh Allen's night. I mean, those 2 picks were just kind of inexplicably bad throws. There were some throws he missed toward the end of the game as well. And I mean, I think he told Melissa Stark after the game that game felt gross to him as in terms of a win. And that's what you can do when you're one of those really, really good teams. You kind of have the ability to mess around a little bit. I mean, like that pick right there is just something that's bad from Josh Allen. You're early on in the fourth quarter. You really just want to go down the field, get some points, get a touchdown, seal the win, and then everybody's happy and everybody's going home, and you can put in Case Keenum and you can feel good about yourself for the rest of the night. They weren't able to do that. The Bills were not able to really shut that thing down and definitively put it away in the way that they really should have done. So I don't know if they're just getting a little bit bored or what, but that's the kind of thing where you can get away with that in the middle of the season when you're playing a Green Bay Packers team that is clearly not at your caliber. But if you're not putting teams away when you get to late December into January, then that's going to turn into a problem. But for yesterday, it obviously was not.
Yeah, but you're right. That's the kind of performance where if you're not careful, it disrupts you on your path to the inevitable rematch, otherwise inevitable rematch with the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's continues to be my big concern, that one of those two teams, Chiefs-Bills, stub their toe, lose a game, and rob everyone, including themselves, of what would be an epic AFC championship. Well, who knows? Well, our expectations are probably too high at this point. I don't know that they can get any higher after what we saw from those two teams last year, but we all expect them, hope that they will cross paths again. All due respect to the other teams in the AFC that would like to keep that from happening. The Bills have shown signs, though, of the ability, and I keep looking for a dominant team. And there's this argument now, the Bills are better than the Eagles, even though the Bills have a loss and the Eagles don't. I saw Peter King has the Bills ahead of the Eagles. He's done a rough ranking of the 32 teams almost halfway through the season. I still put weight in being unbeaten. And, the quality that we saw last night from the Bills, that contributed to what happened to them when they lost their only game, September 25 against Miami. They ridiculously outplayed the Dolphins, but it's just enough of a little lackadaisical quality to their play that creates an opening for someone to beat them. And, the Eagles, and we'll talk about the Eagles later, but they were facing an opponent that could have been very dangerous yesterday, and they won by 22. They didn't screw around. They didn't mess around. They didn't put themselves in a position where it could even be a conversation of that team possibly coming back and making it a game and or beating them. And that's where the Bills need to aspire to be if they want to comfortably be the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Well, right. Yes. That's what I mean by when I'm talking about Josh Allen and, him talking about it feeling gross and those throws and it's this and it's that. And I like Josh Allen. I like the way he plays. I think he's a great, great player, but I think that there are sometimes those lapses where he gets back into 2018 Josh Allen, 2019 Josh Allen, where you just saw him kind of make errors that you just aren't accustomed to him making anymore. And, when you have the kind of weapons that he has with Stephon Diggs, with Gabe Davis, with McKenzie, all these guys that are really, really good, Dawson Knox, you just expect that level of play to be at a certain height, right? And when it doesn't get there, And you see that these turnovers keep the other team in the game when that other team really did not have a shot. I mean, look, the Packers, as much as they have Aaron Rodgers and as good as Aaron Rodgers can be, they don't have the horses right now. So when you have a situation like that, you want to be like the Eagles, where you remove all doubt earlier on in that matchup, so you're not coming down the stretch and it's kind of like, wait, there might be this little sliver of an opening for Aaron Rodgers to do, holy Aaron Rodgers stuff. And then, we're in a really bad spot. You just don't want that to happen. So I think that the Bills are good. We can say like whether or not they're better than the Eagles. I mean, it's hard for me to say that I'm picking any team over Josh Allen right now, given how I know how well Josh Allen can play, even though the Eagles are really, really, really good and Jalen Hurts is playing as good as anybody. But it's just this ability right here where it's 3rd and 14 and Josh Allen doesn't necessarily have anybody to throw the ball to. And he's just like, hey guys, hey, block for me. All right. I'm just going to lower my shoulder a little bit. I'm going to run it down the field. I was shocked that he didn't get into the end zone right there, because usually he does. But then he has this option right here too, where it's like, oh, I think he's going to run. No, he flips the ball to the end zone and he's hitting Dawson Knox. And it's a better play for him because he's preserving his body a little bit more. And that's one of those things we kept talking about early on in the season. I mean, how many times is Josh Allen going to take those hits? When he's making plays like that, where he's making you think that he's going to run and then he flips it into the end zone, sort of a la Patrick Mahomes, that's just a better football play, I think, if you're a QB.
I think to summarize my feelings on the Bills, and we agree on this, I believe, when you get their full focus, if they were to play the Eagles this week, they wouldn't screw around and find out. They wouldn't put themselves in a position where they potentially would be vulnerable. They are susceptible to losing in a game where they're not locked in. When they're locked in, they can beat anybody. When they're not locked in, they can lose to anybody. And even though last night's game was never in serious doubt, it never felt like the ass-kicking that I thought it was going to be. Changing of the guard statement game. It just wasn't. And one of the reasons it wasn't, we'll flip it over to the Packers now. Got to give them credit for their game plan. And at one point last week when Sims and I were riffing on whatever the Packers may or may not do, I said, you're actually in a spot where you're better off just trying to run the ball, and keep Josh Allen and company on the sidelines. And you look at the numbers from the Green Bay offense, they ran the ball plenty. When you consider that you've got Aaron Rodgers, 20 rushes by Aaron Jones for 143 yards, 10 from A.J. Dillon for 54, 30 total passes from Aaron Rodgers. You don't expect that kind of 50-50 balance from a team that's got a franchise quarterback. But if the goal is ultimately to control one statistic, points scored versus points allowed, that's kind of the way you have to play the Bills. And they didn't even get away from it when it was 27-10. They kept with that formula. They had this faith that this is the way to do it. And maybe at some level, Myles, what they were trying to do was avoid 45-10, was avoid having the floodgates open. You don't want a demoralizing loss. They say there's no such thing as moral victories. You hear that all the time. But I think there's a real difference for this Packers team to having the crap kicked out of them by the Bills versus playing them within the spread, within the margin. And so you come away from it, because I continue to believe very strongly that the Packers, if they get to the playoffs as a wild card, 6 seed, 7 seed range in the NFC, and they still could.
Yeah.
They could be very dangerous in January. We saw them win the Super Bowl as the last team in 2010. I think the mindset that Aaron Rodgers articulated last week about we can play freer as the underdog, it's kind of good to be the underdog, I think that actually helps them in the postseason, because when they're the 1 seed, they seize up. We got too much to lose. All those weeks of work, everything that we built, it's all in jeopardy now as we host the 49ers in the divisional round, a team that we are better than in all phases except special teams, which was the problem. But I really do think, and that's what they're on track for now at 3-5, to get in the hard way, and then give everyone a hard time once they get there.
I mean, you talk about moral victories, and I don't know how much this is a moral victory or not, but when you are able to run the ball like that, it seems like they kind of found something, right? And even though that didn't work last night against the Buffalo Bills aren't on your schedule for the rest of the season unless you make it to the biggest stage, right? So I think in doing that, they probably did find a little something offensively where they can finally get some rhythm, finally get, I don't know, a little bit of continuity going, a little bit of just flow and something that they can take into next week and then the next week and then the next week and start stacking those blocks off of that. Because when you run the ball that well and you still have a quarterback who can throw it as Aaron Rodgers can throw it, that opens up really everything for your offense, because it means that the linebackers can't just stay steady and wait for, somebody to try to come open on the second level. Like you have to come up and try to stop the run. I think it's great you mentioned, that they've got the Detroit Lions next week. Look, that's a struggling football team. Okay. So if you can't go out there, run the ball, execute your plan against them, then you're not going to get it right, probably. So I think that establishing the fact that you can really run the ball when you want to against a team like the Buffalo Bills, then we'll have you be able to say in this coming week, all right, let's build off of that. What can we do where we know we can run the ball effectively, and let's get after one of these division rivals that we have? I think the Packers might have found something last night, even in that loss.
There are no moral victories, but you can get demoralized. And it could have been a demoralizing loss last night for the Packers, where they just feel like that's it, it's done, it's over. It's not. Even though they lost, it's not over. Let's hear a little bit from Bills pass rusher Von Miller on the fact that the Packers utilized an offensive game plan so heavily reliant on the run.
I was shocked that they ran the ball so much. They had Aaron Rodgers, and I was just, by previous bouts, I was just expecting him to, have a little bit more control. So I was kind of anticipating him, passing the ball a little bit more, and they just kept running and running and running. And I think, for me personally, it just caught me off guard, and I had like some lanes open where they can run the ball and stuff, because, I was just playing the pass. I'm looking at the scoreboard, and I'm seeing that we're up by 17 points, and, it's 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and I'm thinking that, they got to start passing the ball soon. But nope, they just kept running, and they ran the ball well.
I think I figured out Von Miller's Halloween costume based upon
What's that?
Combination of Elmer Fudd, Kirk Cousins, Browns fan. That's my. It's a trifecta for Von Miller.
Where does the chain fit into all of that?
That's Kirk Cousins. He's making fun of Kirk Cousins with all. We see him with they have him wear the chains now, like on the coming back from Miami. You got to keep up with the sport that you cover. Kirk Cousins wearing the chains. That's a thing now. All right. Well, and the other side of this too, the Bills have to, because what are teams going to do? They're going to be exploring. They're going to be probing. They're going to be looking for anything they can use to try to beat the Bills. So now you got to think about upcoming opponents. Run heavy. Hey, my son, who is drinking the purple Kool-Aid in Minneapolis, as much as I tell him, it's just like the other Kool-Aid that they drank some 43 years ago. It's not going to nourish you in any way, shape, or form. Is it enough time has passed that we can make light of that? Anyway, the Vikings go to Buffalo in 2 weeks, and I told my son as he was exulting about the fact that the Vikings beat the Cardinals yesterday, the ass kicking is just 14 days away, now 13 days. And he gets mad at me. But you know what? They got Dalvin Cook and they got Alexander Mattison. Maybe they try the same thing. Run heavy, keep Josh Allen off the field.
Yeah.
Get him a little frustrated. Maybe get them to think that, even though the Vikings are the most fraudulent 6-1 team I've ever seen, and maybe if the Bills agree with me, they're not as locked in, they're not as focused. It's not like the Eagles are coming to town. So maybe there's something there, a glimmer of a blueprint. Usually we seize on blueprints if they result in a victory. Maybe this is a glimmer of something you can try to do against the Bills. Run the ball, control the clock, keep Josh Allen on the sidelines. It didn't work for the Packers, but it kept them from losing by 30 or more points.
Well, I think it didn't work for the Packers. And going back to what Von Miller was saying is because they don't have the horses on the outside, at least at this point, who can really beat you in terms of the wide receivers. I mean, think about who wasn't out there last night and all these people that Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the established trust with, right? Randall Cobb is on injured reserve. Alan Lazard wasn't playing. He has a shoulder injury. You got Christian Watson. He went out with a concussion very early on in the game. And I don't even know if Aaron Rodgers trusts him all that much. So, I mean, you're getting Romeo Doubs coming up with a huge play in the end zone. Obviously, he gets that touchdown.
Unbelievable
it's like,
catch.
Oh, yeah. Therefore, out thou Romeo, right? My goodness. I mean, that's an outstanding catch.
I don't understand that reference.
Well, yes. Well, that's because you don't understand Shakespeare. You know, that's what that is right there. Anyway, I feel like if you can get more plays like that, then yeah, you're going to throw it more on the outside, but it's just that they don't have that chemistry yet. So what are you going to do? You're going to run the ball because that's the way you feel like you can move it. So there's just not that chemistry, established timing that you have with your guys yet when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers. But I mean, if Dobbs can keep making plays like this and the one that he had in the end zone too, then yeah, that's going to come along quicker. And I guess I should mention Sammy Watkins too is another one of those guys. But like I said, it's just the chemistry's not there yet. But if you make plays like that, then that's going to help it.
The theory / hot take that Sims and I have been cooking up ties Aaron Rodgers' unwillingness to trust his young receivers with his unwillingness to jeopardize his one claim as being the greatest of all time, that ridiculous touchdown to interception ratio, those specialty stats that people look at and say, this is the proof that he is the one, even though he only has one Super Bowl championship. He has some other path to making the argument of GOAT status. He doesn't want to undermine that this year by just throwing the ball into coverage, not knowing whether or not his receiver is going to, actually catch the ball or the defensive back is going to catch it. So I think they got a little something going on. And I also I don't typically condone the chippiness. I liked seeing a little chippiness from the Packers last night. When you have a team that's kind of sleepwalking through the season, you have a quarterback who calls guys out for mental mistakes, you could very easily turn within yourself and implode, but they expressed that outwardly. Jair Alexander getting into it with Stephon Diggs repeatedly. Now, look, the Packers lost, but they're not backing down to anybody, even one of the best receivers right now in football. And yes, it ended up being a victory for Stephon Diggs, and Stephon Diggs isn't going to back down, but I kind of liked it. We even saw it late in the game, down 10, defensive linemen chirping at the Bills. There's just, I like that spirit. I like to see a little emotion. Again, I don't like it when it crosses the line into anything extracurricular, but football's an emotional sport. I like seeing some of that happen from a team that is otherwise dangerously moving toward, let's just start thinking about next season territory.
Yeah, there's chippiness, and then there's shoving a practice squad player on the sideline that gets you ejected.
Not
right?
ideal.
Yeah.
Who's trying to help you up? Who was trying to help you up?
I know. Talk about overreaction, bro. Calm down a little bit, man. But and Matt LaFleur said that that's something that's unacceptable, right? He has zero tolerance for that, and that's right. So you have to toe that line.
I don't think zero tolerance means what he thinks. If he has zero tolerance for it, that means he's going to cut the guy today.
You can't. What? Yeah,
it's easy to say zero tolerance. Right? It's harder to actually live zero tolerance. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, fair enough. Yes. But I think, when you're talking about a game and then the guy gets himself ejected, then yeah, you can't have any tolerance for that kind of behavior.
Well, you have no choice. You have no choice. He's been ejected. You can't give him a pass.
Yes, it's not. Yeah, it's kind of, I guess it is also sort of easy to say that you don't have any tolerance for it when the decision about tolerance is taken out of your hands. But yeah, you had to play with an edge if you're the Packers, right? At this point, you are kind of an underdog going into different things. You're an underdog. You're not probably going to win the division. You're so far behind in that to the Vikings. So
they'll find a way to blow it.
You have to go and you have to.
I've seen this movie before. The Vikings will find a way. They'll find a way.
Oh, Mike, I mean, I understand this mentality that you've got, but you know what? Like, if you're winning, you got to just stand there and be like, all right, come at me, man. It's the same mentality I was talking about with my mom a couple years ago when the Browns were actually good. A lot of good that did us, in a couple years ago in 2020, but still, like when you're good, you got to stand there and stand tall and be like, you know what? This is who we are this year. Let's go. Bring it. We want Houston if you're the Yankees, and then you get swept.
Yeah. Okay.
Shout out baseball.
Yes. What's going on in the World Series anyway?
It's 1-1.
Wow.
The series shifts to Philly tonight. Yeah.
They play tonight. They're going up against Browns, Bengals. How dare they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's better that than Sunday Night Football, I guess.
Yeah. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.